Hello, I'm Cecilia Louie at Paper Zen. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to outline the letter S. This time, I'm going to quill onto black cardstock to make these yellow stars shine in a starry night. All the links needed to make this letter are in my ebook, Quilling Letters. It's available in my Etsy shop, and you can find the link in the notes below or at the top right corner. You can download this free template from my blog, and you can substitute the letter with any from my book, Quilling Letters. These simple stars can be used in so many quilling projects, like someone's birthday, a celebration, or even for wishing someone good luck. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe so you'll be notified when I publish new videos. Now, you could choose to make the letter S out of one strip of paper, but I actually prefer to use two separate pieces here because of the winding lengths here. And the join is just in these two corners, and that's pretty much easy enough to do anyway. So of the two, I'd rather just have two strips to deal with instead. But you know, it's completely up to you. Now, to soften the curves here, I'm going to be using this crochet hook, which has a larger circumference than this needle. And I just find it's easier to shape such large curves out of my paper. And the paper that I've always been using to create my letters has been Canson Mi-Tente paper. It's a little thicker, and I've cut it wider than standard quilling paper. I just find that it holds up much more easily when it's standing up on its edge here, and it's quite an open shape, and the longer lengths, I just find it easier to hold the shape that I'm curving into it. So all I'm doing is putting the strip on my finger and rubbing back and forth. And the way I'm rubbing, it just ends up creating that curve into the paper. And how do I know that that curve was there? I just kind of eyeballed it. And so I just basically set it down and go, oh, okay, the curve is starting right about there. And I put it back down onto my template and I compare. How close is that curve? So do you see how it's a little off from there? So I'm just going to soften a little bit more right there. And this is the process. You just kind of keep putting it back down on the template and checking until that's exactly following the curve. So now I can see I need to put the curve in here a lot more acutely. And as you get used to this rubbing technique, your fingers will tell you how much you're pressing into the paper, how much you're creating that curve in there. So obviously I put that in the wrong spot, but it, you know, paper is really forgiving, so it's not a big deal to just kind of soften. So as I'm doing this, I'm actually very softly taming those fibers into the curve, and the more I give pressure, then the more of a curve I'm putting in. So I just need to give that more of an acute angle here. And sometimes it's not always just the rubbing that you do. Sometimes, you know, if you just kind of gently compress it here while it's flat, you can also tame it into shape as well. So I can see I just need to give a bit more of a curve right there. And sometimes, you know, you might achieve this curve that you were looking for, and then when you work on another part, because you gripped it here, you just kind of ruined whatever magic was going on. That's okay. It happens, and it's just because it's all part of one strip. So, you know, it's kind of all together, and you kind of take the good with the bad as you shape one section. You kind of lose focus in the other. Sometimes when you know to expect that kind of stuff, it's kind of like gardening. It's like if you're going to grow lettuce, you know those slugs are going to come along and make a home in your garden. And as long as you know to expect it, it's not so much of a surprise when you go to wash it in the sink and you realize, oh, there's 5 slugs, and you realize, okay, well, it comes with the garden, and you just kind of accept it and move on. So I just need to realign that curve here. And that's pretty much there. So when you are measuring your strips, the first strip here and the second strip here are very similar, but don't let it fool you. This one here, I believe, is just a tad shorter than this strip here. So don't mix them up. Keep them quite, you know, separate as you're marking up your sheets. I've already made the second strip, which is pretty much similar to the first. And yesterday, actually, when I prepped all these materials, this guy was behaving. So, but you know, it's pretty much there. So I feel pretty confident in getting this ready to glue. So I already have a black cardstock here, and you can see a slight depression. So basically all I did was I put this cardstock and lined it up against a sunny window and let the outline tell me from the front, from the sunny window, that, you know, I've lined up my card, and I put some removable tape on here, and I used a dried ink pen to trace this letter onto my card. So I've already prepped my card. Hopefully you'll get your surface ready and we can continue making the letter S. To glue my letter S down to my card, I'm using Aleene's Original Tacky Glue because I like how thick the consistency is, and it dries quite clear. I'm going to be putting a bead of glue on this very thin plastic card here. Now I'm just going to smear that into a thin puddle. Now, because there is this straight piece here, I'm going to use that as my guide, and I'm just going to dip just that portion into glue, and the rest I'm going to leave unglued for now. This part I like to tackle first right off the bat because it's obviously a no-brainer. It's going to be kind of like a lodestone starting point because it's just so easy, right? Now obviously it's this part here that's quite tricky, because if I were to have done this part already, it's going to be in my way to insert the glue. So I'm just going to turn this letter upside down because for me the light is shining this way, so it's more easier for me to see the embossed letter against it. Now with my left hand, I'm going to lift this letter, part of the letter, up from the surface of the card. This way I can maneuver however I need, and I don't have to worry about the glue touching the card and leaving any trace of it. And with my right hand, I am using that hand for the placement. Okay, so now this part here is all unglued, you see. And I'm going to leave it that way because I want to get into this part, this inner part of the letter S, and I want to have free reign. So I can do that if I move that guy out of the way. So if you could imagine, if I glue that down, you can still do it from this side. It's kind of up to you, but I think my gut is telling me to do it this way for now. You might be concerned about ruining your arc, but I think it's going to be okay. Now you're probably wondering, well, Cecilia, I don't have octopus arms. How am I going to hold that out of the way? So I've got an amazing piece of technology here called a Post-it note. And I'm just going to basically pull it out of the way and Post-it note it down. And it's just going to hold it there for me. So starting from the opposite side, I'm going to do the same technique in dipping just the straight area for now. And if there is any excess glue on the sides, this is a good time to just, you know, take your tool and brush off the excess. Now you see how the glue is not towards the edge? I'm just going to re-smear it so it does reach the edge. Now it's kind of summer here now. It's the first day of summer actually here in Vancouver, and the air is quite dry and warm. So I'm noticing that my thin glue puddle is drying a lot faster than normal, so I need to work quite quickly. So with my right hand I'm lifting it up until I know the placement is where I want it to go. Again, if there are any excess glue areas that I might have picked up, this is the time to get rid of them. So now that we've got our two inner parts taken care of, now let's take care of the outer parts of the S. For me, working one section at a time is a lot easier than trying to glue the entire length. This way I'm not rushed, I'm not freaking out about the glue touching in areas that I didn't mean it to touch. A lot more tame, isn't it? Now I'm just going to use my card and put it as a stopper against this edge. That way my corner won't go too far, or, well, actually in this case a little too short. Let's see if I can pick that up before it's glued entirely. Sometimes it's just a little off, a little bit. I mean, we are human, right? So it can be off a little bit. Yeah, that glue is definitely drying quicker than normal. Now that corner is still open, so I'm just going to pick up a little bit of glue here. That's a bit much. Right about there. And just bring it up along the edge. And join those two. Now I'm really not liking how fast this glue is drying, so I'm just going to put down a new puddle. It's better to work with fresh glue because you don't want the skin that develops to mar your surface, your working surface. And again, because I need it to go right to the edge, that's where I'm going to smear it all the way while it's still fresh. So now I just have just this part to do, so we're just going to treat it the same way as the other curve. To make your stars, there's 3 sizes that you can make: small, medium, and large. And all you need to do is lay your strip on top and use a quilling needle or a dried pen and follow along those dotted lines to mark along the sheet. And then when I got to here, I just take a pair of scissors and cut that length off. So now that all my sections have been scored, it's going to be easy to fold along those score lines into a zigzag. So I'm just using my nail to hold it here and my other nail to hold there as I fold the zigzag. Now when I get to the end, you may or may not have some of these surfaces kind of going this way and that because we're human, and so with these fingers I'm just going to align them as I compress the folds with this finger. So align on the top and bottom of those folds and squeeze, and you know it's going to be a little off here and there, it's not a big deal. And I'm going to use my fine tip glue bottle here and just lay down a little thin stream of glue. And I'm just going to dip my end into the glue. I'm just going to kiss it so I have a small amount of glue right there. That's how much. And then I'm just going to bring these 2 ends together so that they touch. Now I'm going to use my quilling needle and just run it along the top so that those 2 edges meet. And with these fingers, I'm making sure that my edges are, you know, on the same plane here, so you know you're not gluing them off shifted from one another. And magically, that zigzag has become a star. So then from here, you can adjust your star just by pinching and pulling the arms. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, I kind of like them not perfect because then they seem to have more movement. They have more personality. I mean, it's still drying, so I don't want to pull too much, but if you were to pull, see how you can reshape it and give it different dimension. Just that easy. I already made a couple stars in a couple of colors here, and I'm also going to be taking the same midnight blue color for my letter S here, and I've made some scrolls. So what I've done is, in this case, I'm tearing this end because I want this end to blend more seamlessly into the letter S, and I'm kind of imagining it sort of adding some movement to the stars and such and coming from the letter S itself. So on one end I am tearing it, and then on this end it doesn't matter, so I'm just going to snip it. So to create that scroll, all I did was I softened the paper. See how that part's not soft? So I turn it around and I soften that. It's just something I do, folks, so you don't have to do it this way, but I like to have a very smooth arc. And then I'm just going to lay the needle against the paper into my finger and rub. And the friction is similar to rubbing dry glue off your fingers. So when you have a tight coil like that, I just kind of loosen it up a little and recoil. So this is a smaller one from that one, but pretty much that's how that's made. Then from there, decide how you want to add simple scrolls to make them into shooting stars. It's so much fun to mix up the colors. Now that I've finished gluing my shooting stars and scrolls on my letter S, I've come back to my template and I've cut the smaller of the square out. And then I've taped the card to the back of the template yet again. And I've decided, because I have it on a 5.5 inch card, I really wanted to kind of bring the space in. It's a little bit floating on a large card, so I really wanted to give it an outline. It's kind of similar to the letter R. If you haven't watched that video, I'm using a similar technique here. So if you have watched that video and you don't want to watch it again, you know, you can skip to the end. Anyway, so because I've cut out that smaller square, and this is now going to be my jig, it's going to be my template, my guide, and I'm going to glue 4 strips across all the edges here to frame it. So I'm going to use it on a scrap piece of paper, and of course now this part is scrap, and I'm going to run my glue stick basically just only in the middle. I hope that makes sense. So not from edge to edge. And I've got a little bit excess, so we want to take that part off before we glue that part down. And the reason why I want to do it from just the middle is because I want these corners to be loose for now, and you'll see why if you haven't watched letter R. So let's just continue doing the rest. I'm a big fan of doing things, well, I like to joke of it, saying that I'm being lazy, but basically using a template like this to make sure all my elements are straight, it allows me to be lazy, because then I don't have to think about how to make it straight, how to make things centered. So what I want to know from you guys is this your first time quilling on a dark background? Let me know in the comments below. And if I've inspired you to make something, please show me what you make. I'd love to see that. Okay, so I deliberately left those edges, I deliberately left the corners unglued for a reason, and this is the reason why. So I'm going to take a ruler and align this inside corner with that outside corner. And really just take your time to get to know your paper, and I'm feeling for the depth of the paper as I cut through the 2 layers. So it's very easy for you to just check. Okay, so I cut through the first layer. I haven't cut through the second. So the reason why you see me do it several times is because obviously if you cut through your black cardstock, that's not what you want to feel. And if you want to practice before you're actually doing the real thing like this, then simply just take your quilling strips and get the feel for how it sounds before you hit the cutting mat, where it's smoother. There's a smoother feel, there's a smoother sound, and you get to let your hands feel, what does it feel like to cut through the depth of one strip. So after you've cut through the rest of the corners, that's when you can lift this up and glue the rest of these corners down, and you have a nice seamless sort of border all around your card to give it a finished look. Want to be the first to know when I put out my latest video tutorial? Subscribe to my channel. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you give it 2 thumbs up or leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you.